At 3:04 a.m. on my 35th birthday, my security camera caught a figure lingering at my front door. By morning, a perfectly wrapped velvet box waited on my porch. I smiled for the live stream, thinking it was just another family peace offering. But as I lifted the gold necklace from its nest, I froze. A dark, dried stain clung to the chain, and beneath the velvet lining lay a tiny USB drive. My pulse spiked. The note beside it read, "You'll regret what you said about the will." That was the moment I knew this year I wouldn't just survive, I'd fight. The sunlight streamed through my kitchen window, washing the counters in a warm, golden glow. I adjusted my phone's tripod, tilting it so my viewers could see the carefully wrapped velvet box sitting on the table. "All right," I said with a smile, "let's see what the birthday fairy brought me this year." The live stream chat was already moving too fast to follow, a cascade of emojis, happy birthday wishes, and questions about the package. The box was elegant, deep burgundy with a gold ribbon and heavy for its size. I lifted it slightly for the camera, letting the ribbon catch the light. "Looks expensive," I teased, then glanced at the security feed on my laptop. At 3:04 a.m., the porch camera had recorded a figure, tall, wearing a dark hoodie, standing perfectly still at my front door. The figure lingered for 10 full seconds before placing the box down and walking away. No delivery van, no bike, no car, just gone. "Creepy," someone typed. Another comment scrolled by so fast I almost missed it. "Zoom out on the camera feed behind you." I turned my head toward the monitor. Nothing unusual now, just the empty porch in bright morning light. I laughed it off. "Probably just a prank," I said, even though a small knot of unease had started forming in my stomach. I set the box down and brushed my fingers over the ribbon, but my mind drifted somewhere else entirely. I was 13 again, sitting at the long oak dining table at my grandmother's house. It was Thanksgiving, and the entire extended family had gathered. I'd gotten top marks in school that semester, and Grandma had congratulated me in front of everyone. My mother had smiled, then turned to my aunts and uncles and said, "Well, Jake will be the one carrying the family name and the estate. Hannah's always been more independent." The implication had been clear. Jake was the future. I was a side note. That day, the words landed like ice water down my back. I had learned then to hide the sting, to laugh along like it didn't matter, but it always mattered. Back in the present, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone in the live stream chat had dug up an old Facebook post from my mother, dated 2 years ago, saying, "Some people forget where they came from. Family is forever, but loyalty is a choice." I remembered that post. I remembered the flood of relatives calling to check in afterward, their voices dripping with the same false concern my parents had perfected. I pushed the memory aside and turned my focus back to the box. "Okay," I said, reaching for the ribbon. "Moment of truth." I leaned closer to the camera so my viewers could see my hands as I undid the bow. The chat exploded with little bursts of "open it" and "what's inside." Then something strange happened. The live stream feed stuttered for just a fraction of a second. A single frame, less than a quarter of a second, flashed on screen. I almost missed it, but years of working with design software had trained my eyes to catch small details. In that brief flicker, I saw a blurry face. It looked like a woman, hair damp, eyes wide and glistening with tears, and then it was gone. I froze, my fingers still resting on the loose ribbon. My gaze shot to the chat. What the hell was that? Did anyone else see a face? Rewind, rewind, rewind. My throat went dry. Did you guys see something? I asked, forcing a smile I didn't feel. My voice sounded a little too tight. I reached over to pause the stream, but my hand stopped halfway. Ending it would just feed the speculation, and something in me, maybe stubbornness, maybe morbid curiosity, wanted to know how far this would go. I leaned back, scanning my kitchen as though the flicker might still be hiding somewhere in the shadows. "All right," I said slowly, "before we go any further, I need to know, what exactly did you see?" The chat lit up with overlapping descriptions. Some swore it was a reflection from my window. Others said it was a face they'd never forget. One comment sent a fresh shiver crawling up my spine. It was behind you, not on the screen. I turned in my chair, looking toward the empty hallway that led deeper into my apartment. Everything was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. My pulse was loud in my ears. I looked back at the camera, my smile returning in a thin, brittle line. "Okay," I said, my voice almost a whisper, "let's open the box." The chat was still buzzing about the face when my phone lit up with a new message. It was from my mother. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." The words were followed by a single emoji, a gleaming silver knife. My hand hovered over the phone. On any other day, I might have laughed at the absurdity, chalked it up to her warped sense of humour. But today, with the unease in my stomach already gnawing at me, it felt different, pointed, deliberate. I read it again, the knife catching the fluorescent glow from my phone screen, like it was real. The viewers noticed my change in expression immediately. "What's wrong?" one asked. "Who texted you?" Before I could answer, a notification popped up on the live stream. Someone had just sent a $200 super chat. The message attached read, "Check under the velvet lining." The words slid into my mind like ice water. My gaze drifted back to the box. The ribbon still hung loose, the lid resting at an angle. I hadn't even looked inside yet. "Guess we're going in," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But instead of lifting the lid, I started talking, stalling maybe, to give my hands something to do. "You know," I said to the camera, "I used to be in the family group chat. We'd talk about holiday plans, birthdays, the usual. Then one day my messages just stopped going through, no explanation. When I asked, Jake said it was some kind of glitch. Mum said she didn't know what I was talking about. Eventually, I stopped asking. The chat filled with messages of sympathy, outrage, disbelief. They cut you out on purpose. That's abuse. That's messed up. I pressed my fingers to the velvet lid, feeling its weight. And then 3 sharp knocks on the front door. I froze. The camera caught it. The chat exploded. "Who's there? Don't open it. Call someone." My eyes darted to the porch camera feed. The doorway was empty. No one in sight. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. This time, just one word. Open. Heart pounding, I lifted the lid. The inside was lined with rich black velvet, and nestled in the centre was a gold necklace, the chain coiled neatly like a sleeping serpent. But my breath caught when I saw the faint maroon streak dried across one of the links. The chat lit up instantly. "That's blood Oh my God, is that real? I picked it up carefully, holding it close to the lens. The stain looked too organic to be rust or paint. My stomach knotted tighter. I set the necklace down and ran my fingers along the velvet. There, beneath the lining, was a hard edge. I pulled it back to reveal a small USB drive, matte black with no label. My fingers trembled as I slotted it into my laptop. A single video file appeared, no title, no time stamp. The video opened to grainy footage of a woman, me, handing an unmarked envelope to a man whose face was blurred. She smiled, shook his hand, and walked away. The setting was somewhere unfamiliar, maybe a parking garage. "That's fake," I said instantly, even though no one had accused me yet. My voice was sharp, defensive. In the chat, a username I recognized, someone who analyzed videos for a living, typed, "There's a watermark in the corner. That's from a site on the dark web. Whoever made this knows what they're doing." My mouth went dry. I scrubbed backward through the video, watching frame by frame. The woman's face, my face, was almost perfect, but there were tiny glitches if you knew where to look. The way the shadows didn't quite line up. The slight lag in the blink. I looked at the chat, searching for something, anything that might make this make sense. And then a new message popped up from an account with no profile picture, no history. "It's not Jake. This person is smarter than him." The room seemed to tilt slightly. My first thought was denial. Of course it was Jake. Who else would hate me enough, know me well enough to pull this off? But the comment lodged itself in my brain like a thorn. Smarter than him. The necklace lay on the table, its golden links catching the light. The streak of dried blood, a cruel slash across the perfection. The USB still sat in my laptop, the frozen image of my face staring back at me from a moment that had never happened. I leaned toward the camera, my eyes fixed on the lens. "Who are you?" I asked, though I didn't expect an answer. The chat slowed for just a second, as though holding its breath. Then another knock at the door. The second round of knocks was louder, sharper. I turned toward the door, still streaming, the necklace and USB lying on the table behind me. When I opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch, their expressions unreadable. "Ms. Carter?" the taller one asked. I nodded, and he continued. "We need to ask you some questions. May we come in?" The chat went wild. Warnings, pleas, demands to end the stream. My hands felt stiff as I stepped back to let them enter. The shorter officer's gaze fell immediately to the necklace. "That's the item?" "Yes," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted. He produced a small evidence kit, snapping on gloves before lifting the chain into a clear plastic bag. The darker stain caught in the morning light, and he glanced at me. "We'll run a rapid presumptive test now." I watched as he applied a few drops of reagent to a cotton swab and touched it to the stain. Within seconds, the swab turned a deep, unmistakable blue. "It's human blood," he confirmed quietly. My knees nearly buckled. Somewhere in the chat, I saw the words, "Oh my God," repeat over and over. Before I could ask anything, the taller officer's radio crackled. A voice on the other end gave clipped instructions. His eyes shifted toward my laptop. "Ma'am, we're going to need to take that USB drive into custody." I nodded numbly, stepping aside, but as he reached for it, a notification popped up on the screen. "File shared successfully." The video had been sent somewhere, maybe everywhere, before they could even touch it. "Who did that?" I asked, my voice breaking. The officer's jaw tightened. "It's already online," he said. By the time they left, my phone was vibrating non-stop. News alerts. Social media mentions. I clicked one at random, and there it was, the deepfake clip playing on loop on a gossip site. My face frozen in a smirk as I handed over the envelope. The headline read, "Heiress caught in bribery scandal linked to missing person case." I thought I'd known what betrayal felt like. I hadn't. 2 hours later, my parents appeared on a morning talk show. My mother's voice trembled as she said, "We just want Hannah to know we love her and we forgive her. We only wanted her to see the error of her ways." My father nodded solemnly beside her. It was a perfect performance, the quivering lips, the glassy eyes, and it worked. The comments online were already framing me as the ungrateful child who'd turned on her own family. By noon, the fallout began. An email from the gallery hosting my upcoming interior design exhibition arrived with the subject line, "Contract Termination." They couldn't risk the association while my name was tied to a criminal investigation. An hour later, my bank account showed a zero balance. A curt message from the bank manager explained that my accounts had been frozen under suspicion of laundering money connected to an ongoing federal matter. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen. My livelihood, my reputation, everything I'd built was collapsing in real time. A private message pinged in my live stream inbox. No username, no icon, just a link. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. A chain of text messages appeared on my screen. They were between Jake and my mother. "We'll make sure she can't touch a dime. When do you want to drop the next thing? Let me get out of the country first." The final message from Jake read, "Mexico in 2 days. She'll never see it coming." I felt my breath catch. Before I could process it, a new image loaded, a grainy phone photo of Jake at an outdoor cafe. Seated across from him was a woman, her face partially turned toward the camera. I knew that face. It was Emily, my best friend since college. My vision tunneled. I wanted to believe it was a trick, a coincidence, anything but what it seemed. But the tilt of her head, the curve of her smile, it was her. She was in Mexico with my brother, days before my life had been set on fire. The chat notifications started to ping again. Someone had already recognized her, tagging her Instagram handle in comments. My hands clenched into fists. I didn't know if my next breath would come as a scream or as silence. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the apartment, every shadow in the corner made me flinch. By dawn, my eyes burned from staring at the security feeds. I'd watched them so many times that the grainy footage played behind my eyelids when I blinked. It was around 6 a.m. when I noticed it. The basement camera, a feed I rarely checked, showed movement from the night before my birthday. I rewound the recording. There was Jake slipping through the back door with a key only family members had. He moved fast, his hoodie drawn up, a box tucked under one arm. He knelt, set it carefully on my workbench, and paused. The camera caught the angle of his face as he looked around, then pulled his phone from his pocket and snapped a picture of the box. He left as quietly as he'd arrived. I saved the footage twice, once on an encrypted drive, once in the cloud. Then I turned to the deepfake clip. Pulling up the file properties, I scanned the metadata. There was no location tag, but the file name wasn't random. It was a string of numbers. At first I thought it was a timestamp, but then it hit me. Month day, year. My mother's birthday. I felt the heat rising in my chest, not fear this time, but something sharper. Anger, raw and electric. They hadn't even bothered to hide it. I opened a private streaming room and invited only 50 people I trusted most from my audience. The ones who'd been vocal in defending me, who'd sent leads or caught details, I missed. As the view account locked in, I played the basement footage. Jake, I said, my voice steady, brought the package into my home. My mother's birthday is coded into the fake video they're using against me. If anyone still thinks this is a coincidence, watch again. The chat in that small room was a flurry of disbelief, rage, and theories. I was about to pull up the metadata again when a private message popped into my inbox. I'm your half-sibling. Same father. We need to talk. For a moment I couldn't move. I read it twice, 3 times. The sender's profile was blank, no name, no photo, but they included a phone number and said they had proof of everything. I ended the stream early. My heart was pounding, but my mind was already turning over possibilities, questions, dangers. By evening, I'd decided I couldn't wait. If they had information that could connect the dots, I needed it now, but I wouldn't go alone. The next day, I reached out to a YouTuber known for dismantling elaborate scams and exposing deepfake operations. We met in a quiet coffee shop, and I slid the drive with the basement footage and metadata across the table. Timeline first, he said. Then we track the money. For the next 4 hours, we pieced together every timestamp, every message, every public appearance by my family in the weeks before the package arrived. There were gaps, suspicious ones, but enough to show that my parents had motive and opportunity. It was the YouTuber who traced a payment trail on the blockchain, several large transfers from a crypto wallet tied to a shell corporation my parents controlled. Those payments led straight to an account flagged for selling custom media services on a dark web marketplace. They paid for the deepfake, he said flatly. I nodded, my hands clenched around my coffee cup. I could feel the heat of vindication, but also the weight of what this meant. I called a journalist I trusted, one who had taken down more than one untouchable name in the city. I've got proof, I told her, video, financial records, everything. She agreed to meet me the next morning. That night I sat at my desk, assembling the files into a single encrypted folder. The progress bar inched toward completion. When it hit 100%, I dragged it into an email draft addressed to the journalist. My finger hovered over the send button, and then the cursor froze. The folder disappeared. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. A pop-up appeared on my screen. File not found. I checked the backup drive. Empty. The cloud storage wiped clean. It was as if the last 24 hours had been erased. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number read, "You think you're clever? You're not the only one who can watch." I sat back in my chair, the glow of the screen washing my face in cold light. They were inside my system, inside my life. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was war. For hours, I tore through my hard drives, my phone backups, every scrap of storage I had left. It felt hopeless, like trying to glue a shattered mirror back together in the dark. But sometime after midnight, the recovery software pinged. A single audio file had survived. I plugged in my headphones and hit play. It was my mother's voice, sharp and clear, as if she was standing right beside me. "Let her be destroyed in front of everyone," she said in Vietnamese, a phrase she used when she was truly angry. Let her be destroyed in front of everyone. There was a rustle, and then Jake's voice. And then what? My mother's reply came like ice water. Then she'll have nothing to fight back with. The file was only 37 seconds long, but it was all I needed. I paired it with the basement footage, the crypto payment trail, and the metadata from the deepfake file. By dawn, I'd uploaded the entire package to my own channel and every platform I could think of. The video began with my face, calm but unflinching. My name is Hannah Carter. My family tried to ruin me. This is how they did it. Then the evidence rolled. Within an hour, San Justice for Hannah was trending nationwide. Viewers clipped sections of the video, adding their own outrage, tagging journalists and politicians. The YouTuber I'd worked with live reacted to it, pointing out how sophisticated the smear campaign had been. By mid-afternoon, the police issued a public statement, arrest warrants for my parents on charges of conspiracy, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. A nationwide alert went out for Jake. I thought that was the end of it until a brand new account appeared on one of the video threads. No profile picture, no followers, just one post. She's not the final boss. I stared at it for a long time. The comments underneath speculated wildly. Another sibling, a business partner? But something about the phrasing sent a chill down my spine. The next morning, my lawyer called with news that knocked the breath out of me. He'd gone over my grandmother's will again and found a clause buried deep in the legal language. If either of my parents were convicted of a felony, their inheritance would be void and transferred entirely to me. It was surreal. Hours earlier, I'd been fighting to prove I wasn't a criminal. Now I was the sole heir to an estate worth millions. But there was no celebration. My family's name was in ruins. Reporters swarmed the courthouse when my parents were brought in, wearing handcuffs. Jake was caught 2 days later in Texas, looking gaunt and cornered. When they dragged him into custody, he didn't fight. It wasn't my idea, he told the cameras, his voice hoarse. I just did what I was told. The words gnawed at me. Who else could he mean? I got my answer that night. A source inside the investigation leaked it to the press before the police could even brief me. The money for the deepfake hadn't originated in my parents' account. It had been funneled through another relative, my mother's older sister, my Aunt Lorraine. Lorraine, who'd vanished from family gatherings years ago after a bitter fight with my grandmother. Lorraine, who'd been cut out of the will entirely. According to the investigators, she'd spent years building a network of favours and quiet leverage, waiting for the right moment to destroy the branch of the family that had shut her out. She'd used my parents' resentment toward me as a weapon, feeding their paranoia and financing every step of the smear campaign. I could picture her clearly. Sharp eyes, sharper tongue, sitting in some quiet room watching the chaos she'd orchestrated unfold on the news. When the reporters finally shoved microphones in my face, asking what I thought of my aunt's betrayal, I only said one thing. At least now I know how deep the rot goes. The news broke just after sunrise. My Aunt Lorraine was arrested at her lake house in Wisconsin, led away in handcuffs by federal agents. By midday, my parents, Jake and Lorraine, were all formally charged, their faces plastered across every news channel and social feed. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. My name was everywhere, but this time not as a villain. Justice for Hannah trended for the third day straight, joined by shock blood in the gold and family isn't always blood. Strangers from across the country flooded my inbox with messages of support. My subscriber count doubled overnight. For the first time in weeks, I walked outside without feeling eyes boring into me with suspicion. This time, the glances I got were different. Recognition, sympathy, solidarity. 2 days later, I was sitting in the green room of a major morning talk show. The producer buzzed around me, checking my mic, touching up my makeup, telling me how the audience couldn't wait to meet the woman who fought back. I smiled politely, but inside I felt a strange mixture of gratitude and exhaustion. When the host introduced me, the applause was loud, warm. They asked about the night the package arrived, about the moment I realized my own family was behind it. I told them the truth, every jagged, humiliating piece of it. And then I said, this wasn't just about me. Families like mine hide behind money and appearances, but the damage they do is real. It happens quietly, behind closed doors, and it can happen to anyone. The clip went viral before I'd even left the building. Among the flood of comments was one from a viewer I recognised from the early days of my stream. A quiet account that rarely posted. Their message read, I know what you've been through. My family used deepfake to frame me too. We exchanged emails, and by the next morning, I had a list of 4 more people with similar stories. Each one had been targeted by relatives who used fake footage to discredit them in court battles, inheritance disputes, or custody fights. It was horrifying. And it made me realise I'd stumbled onto something far bigger than my own ordeal. Within a week, I launched a campaign, Clearview Justice. It was part legal fund, part tech task force, designed to help victims of deepfake abuse fight back. The donations poured in faster than I could track. Former law enforcement officers offered their expertise. Cybersecurity specialists volunteered to help dismantle the networks creating the videos. Just when I started to think maybe I could finally breathe, it happened. I was in the middle of a live interview at a podcast studio, soft lighting, casual chairs, coffee cups in hand, when a production assistant slipped me a white envelope. No return address, no markings except for my name written in block letters. I tucked it under my arm until the interview was over. Only when I was back in the quiet of my dressing room did I tear it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 words typed in a bold serif font. It's not over. No signature, no context, just the echo of a promise or a threat. I didn't show it to anyone. Not yet. By the end of the month, I'd left Chicago. My new apartment in New York had tall windows that let the morning light pour in, and the street noise was a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. I rented a loft in a converted factory building for my design studio. The walls lined with samples and sketches for projects already pouring in from clients who'd reached out after seeing my interviews. But work wasn't enough. I needed to tell the story in my own words, without edits, without someone else controlling the narrative. That's how Blood in the Gold was born. I spent long nights at my desk, reliving each moment from the night the package arrived to the day Lorraine was taken away. Writing it was like walking barefoot over glass, but it was also freeing. When the manuscript was finished, I sent it to a publisher who'd been chasing me since the trial ended. The book deal was signed within a week. The launch of Clearview Justice became my other full-time job. We set up a hotline, vetted lawyers willing to work pro bono, and built a secure platform where victims could upload evidence without fear of it being destroyed. The first case we took on involved a young man whose uncle had used a deepfake to discredit him in a business dispute. We won. The more we worked, the more I saw the same patterns. Abuse hiding under the veneer of family matters, cruelty excused because it came from relatives. My fight had been personal, but the mission was universal. One crisp morning, I stood in my studio, the sunlight spilling across my drafting table, and realised something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The scars were still there, but they no longer owned me. I packed my bag for a meeting and slipped my phone into my pocket. As I reached for the door, my eyes fell on the white envelope sitting on the corner of my desk. I hadn't moved it since the day it arrived. The camera in the room caught me pausing, my hand resting lightly on the envelope. Then I smiled, a real smile, one that reached my eyes, and walked out into the morning light, leaving it sealed behind me.